Many thanks for being there. Now, Nigeria's lower legislative chamber has called upon the Federal Inland Revenue Service to take action against ministries, departments, agencies, oil companies, and individuals who have outstanding tax obligations. The directive followed the adoption of a motion by Esosa Yahweh, representing the Radio Federal constituency of Edo State. In his motion, Yahweh pointed out that audit reports from 2015 to 2019 show that government agencies owed hundreds of billions in taxes to the FIRS. He added that over 5,000 companies and MDAs of the federal government were reported to owe a staggering 5.2 trillion naira in withholding taxes. However, the House of Representatives urged the FIRS to initiate a robust tax recovery drive and tasked the Committees on Public Accounts and Finance to investigate non-compliance with tax remittance. The president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Ajao, has advocated for a standardized basic salary system applicable to both public and private sectors. Ajao made the call while presiding over the ongoing Northeast Zonal Public Hearing on national minimum wage in Yola. He emphasized the need for comprehensive market hearings across all zones to ensure the effectiveness of wage policies. The Tripartite Committee on National Minimum Wage, conducting the public hearings, also recommended the implementation of the Orsonye report within all tiers of government to streamline governance costs. Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed, who also participated in the event, highlighted the pressing issue of food security and equally stressed the importance of motivating workers through awards and timely promotions to boost productivity.
All over the country, in all the zones, so that we will do what is called market hearing. If we don't do market hearing, the essence of this public hearing will be defeated. We need to go to the market and ask them how much is a bag of rice, how much is a plate of garri, in that order. So this is a suggestion in addition to public hearing that will do market hearing. And if we balance the two, I think we'll be somewhere. We don't need to be told that there is hardship. It is tangible. You can touch it. You can see it. People are suffering. Nigerians are suffering. We are not talking from the point of view of opposition. We are saying the reality. Mr. President and our chairman, Nigerians are looking up to us as leaders. And leadership is not a joke. It's not deception or delusion.
We all agree as governors and as people at the helm of affairs that God has allowed to lead the Northeast and Nigeria at this time, that the times are difficult. And there is no exception, the times are really, really difficult. And as a government, both at the state and the Northeast and the national level, I think the right thing to do at this time is what we are doing, to get the heartbeat of our people and to bring help and succor. I don't think there's any figure that can be paid to a civil servant that will be convenient or that will be comfortable. But all we can do is to come to an agreement.
To health matters now. In Niger State, healthcare delivery faces a crisis as revealed by the Niger State chairman of the Nigerian Medical Association, Dr. Yusuf Mohammed. Dr. Mohammed disclosed that due to a mass exodus of healthcare practitioners, one doctor now treats about 40,000 patients in the state. This situation has been exacerbated by the migration of healthcare workers to other states and outside the country. In 2023, over 1,417 resident doctors moved to the United Kingdom and the United States of America. The Medical and Dental Consultants Association of Nigeria also stated that 9 out of every 10 medical and dental consultants were leaving the country. Dr. Mohammed further noted that the current number of doctors in the state, less than 40,000, is insufficient to meet the needs of the growing population. Earlier, the chairman, Nigeria Medical Association, Niger State branch, Dr. Yusuf Mohammed, spoke to us more on this.
The problem is that many health workers, not only doctors alone, leave the service of the state and the federal government to another place where they think, they will get better pay, better remuneration, better service conditions, and so on. But in our own case, this has caused a lot of problem to us, the little health workers that remain in the state. This resulted into what we call burnout syndrome. The more the doctors or health workers leave the service of the state, the little ones that are around, they will leave a lot of work for them to do. We will not say because we don't have enough doctors, therefore, let's close down the hospitals and so on and so forth. The hospital is always open 24/7, and people access care all the time. And this will now make it that those few that remain will have more work to do. As it has been stated by the Bureau of Statistics, that we have 1 to 40,000, one doctor to 40,000 patient in the community, which is very, very high and is far, far above the WHO recommended, what the WHO recommended, that 1 to 600, 1 doctor to 600 patients. So we can see that there's a lot of problem, and this will make the little one actually to experience what we call burnout. They will get tired easily, they will get fatigued, and this will not make them to give the best that they're supposed to offer in rendering healthcare service to the people.
Women in Nigeria are demanding equal access to regional trade and financial support for their enterprises to tap from the investment potential in the African Continental Free Trade Area. They made this call at the entrepreneurship seminar organized by ECOWAS for rural women in celebration of International Women's Day, with a focus on gender inclusion. News Central's Ajao reports.
Since the launch of trading under the African Continental Free Trade Area in January 2021, the expectations are high as relates to the expanded business prospect, especially for women-led businesses. It is expected to unlock the potential for African women to grow their businesses from micro to macro enterprises, tapping from the billion-dollar investment opportunities within the African sub-region. In celebration of the International Women's Day, the ECOWAS Federation of Business Women and Entrepreneurs is organizing training for women in the rural communities who dominate the informal sector in Nigeria.
We are patronizing local content in the Free Trade African zone that is coming up. So we are trying to make our women produce products from our countries. So we are training them from the beginning to packaging so that their goods will be ready to export within the African region. So that's where we are going from local government to local government to meet those women that has our local content, to help them train to improve their products, up to the extent of packaging it, getting NAFDAC, certifying it so that it can be able to trade within the African region so it can meet the standard.
Our governments and political leaders should get more committed, particularly in the barriers on the roads that make trade difficult. Mainly they are women. Most of them are not very educated. We have to assist them. We have to assist them to get financial support. We have to assist them to get marketing.
The chairperson of the local government reviews how this seminar will impact positively, ensuring inclusiveness of women in the immediate community amidst the limited opportunities for the female gender in the country.
Coming into politics with my husband, I have seen that for the women to be heard in the society, you need to be in front of things. We need to talk the talk and walk the walk.
For decades, African women have been trapped in poverty cycles due to several underlying factors, which include unequal access to education, harmful cultural practices, and inequitable labor-saving technologies, among others. The desire to unlock investment opportunities within the African sub-region has compelled the women folk to also become active participants in regional trade in the continent. In Lagos, for News Central, Ajao.
We also tell you that women in Abia State, southeast Nigeria, have been called upon to support and encourage one another in times of need. This was the fulcrum at the 2024 International Women's Day celebration at the International Conference Center in Umuahia, Abia State capital. News Central's Chumogele has more.
The keynote speaker, Dr. Chema Ibezim, and guest lecturers in their separate presentations enunciated the power of women and how they can rally help for fellow women.
You're a blessing to your world. You're a blessing to your generation. And let nobody put you. When God blesses you with female children, He loves you so much.
This year's campaign theme underscores the crucial role of inclusion in achieving gender equality. It calls for action to break down barriers, challenge stereotypes, inspire and create environments where all women are valued and respected.
It is the opinion of the wife of Governor Alex Oti, Priscilla, and some other women that investing in women takes care of so many societal problems.
Despite our progress, we cannot afford to be complacent. We must remain vigilant in our efforts to address the systemic challenges that continue to impede the advancement of women. It includes tackling gender-based violence, like I said, promoting women's economic empowerment, and ensuring access to comprehensive healthcare services for women and girls.
The moment Nigeria realizes that a woman is a nation builder, then, and includes women in all aspects of economy, in nation building, then things will begin to mend.
The need for women themselves to become the change they desperately desire from the opposite sex also came to the fore.
While we invest in women economically, I want to charge us to support one another, especially in this time that the country is in a challenging time.
The moment women begin to support themselves, things will begin to go well, because if you look at the population, women are more in the population even than men.
We are important in all ramifications. They are not supposed to exclude us in anything. You see that they have made more inputs than men.
The campaign and demand for women inclusion in the scheme of things will naturally stop the moment they realize that it is in their hands to change the narrative and be counted as partners in progress. News Central, China.
Earlier, Raquel Morenike Eseko, registered learning disabilities nurse, mental health specialist, and Joy Favor Efekoha, director, Girl, Child and Women Project, Not Too Young to Lead initiative, spoke to us on these developments.
For me, it really is significant because for a very long time in this part of the world, especially Nigeria, women have had to work twice as hard, as their male counterpart, due to things like religious barriers, cultural differences, gender inequality as well is something that has, contributed to these issues that we have. Sometimes you want to attain a position, but the fact that they say that you're a woman directly or indirectly puts you in that, barrier state, and it causes a barrier for you to access such support.
Let's also tell you that male lawmakers in Nigeria's upper legislative chamber on Thursday celebrated their female counterparts in commemoration of the International Women's Day. Senate President Godswill Akpabio said, although women representation in the chamber is low, its leadership will promote the rights of women and girls in the country. Senator Mohammed Munguno from Borno State called for the inclusion of women in governance.
Women are underrepresented in decision-making process in this country, and therefore, as legislators, we should think out of the box and take deliberate steps by way of legislative intervention to bring about more women into governance for the purpose of inclusivity. And we can only achieve that by taking deliberate steps, because our society is patriarchal in nature.
We try as much as possible to do the best that we can. But back to your question, I want to believe seriously that a lot is being done by all different organizations, the international communities, even in Nigeria, for us, the NGOs, for us to increase what we have. And I want to believe by the grace of God, we are going to increase that number.
You're watching News Now. Coming up, EU-US welcome new date for Senegal's delayed presidential polls. We have the details, and we'll bring it to you after this break. Join us again. News Central now continues in West Africa, where the African Union on Friday welcomed Senegal's decision to hold the presidential election on March 24 after weeks of unrest triggered by the vote delay. This follows similar action and reaction from the United States and the European Union. President Macky Sall plunged Senegal into one of its worst crises in decades with its last-minute postponement of the presidential poll, originally scheduled for February 25. The chairman of the AU Commission, Moussa Faki Mahamat, saluted the peaceful resolution of the institutional crisis in Senegal. He added that the decision to hold the election before Sall vacates office on April 2 reflects the deep-rootedness and resilience of democracy in Senegal. Meanwhile, Senegal's National Electoral Commission has assured citizens that preparations for the March 24 presidential election are on track despite previous delays. The assurance comes amidst concerns raised by the Commission's readiness to conduct the polls despite the excitement in the country following the announcement of the election date. This development comes after weeks of political turmoil and protests sparked by attempts to postpone the original February 25 election in the country. With the election now set to take place before President Macky Sall's mandate expires on April 2, the move brings an end to the crisis that has divided the West African country. Moving on now, Ghana's main opposition presidential candidate, John Mahama, has named a female former minister and academic as his vice presidential running mate for December's election. It is the second time Mahama has chosen Jane Opoku Agyemang as running mate in a conservative West African country where women are sharply underrepresented in politics. The December election is shaping up to be a tight race between President Nana Akufo-Addo's New Patriotic Party and Mahama's opposition, National Democratic Congress. Akufo-Addo steps down after 2 terms, with Ghana emerging from its worst economic crisis in decades and the country in a $3 billion IMF loan program. To the southern part of the continent, we tell you that a group of South African Jewish women on Friday held an International Women's Day march to denounce their government's silence on alleged abuse by Hamas fighters against Israeli hostages. Organized by the South African Jewish Board of Deputies, the women marched in the scorching Johannesburg sun. A mix of young and old, including high school students, waved placards with the faces of the females held captive. In December, Pretoria made a complaint against Israel in the International Court of Justice in The Hague, alleging that its assault on Gaza amounts to a breach of the Genocide Convention.
The world has been silent. Our government, our president, who constantly talks about how gender-based violence is such a priority for him. But has he said one word to condemn the sexual violence that happened to these Israeli women?
Taken by surprise, and the world is silent? It cannot be. Mandela's voice would have been the first voice to say, let these people live in peace. Don't do this to women.
It's not about who the person is. Wrong is wrong. Rape is rape. End the silence. Bring back our girls. Because me too, unless I'm a Jew, should not be a...
Let's also tell you that we understand that concrete Barriers have been built along a stretch of the South Africa-Mozambique border to prevent people crossing over to steal and smuggle vehicles. South African authorities have budgeted close to $2.7 million to build the wall. According to a joint briefing by the South African government and KwaZulu-Natal province, building works on the Tembe Elephant Park section are currently underway. Authorities say the impact of the project has been positively received by the community and the South African National Defence Force. There are 15 companies of troops safeguarding South Africa's borders, particularly high-risk borders with Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Lesotho. We now head to Zambia, where the country has announced it will start rationing its electricity as the effect of the drought that's hitting much of the Southern African nation continues to bite. The managing director of the state-owned power company, ZESCO, announced that 8 hours of load shedding per day would begin next week. Victor Mapani said the move was as a result of the low water levels at Kariba Dam, which is used to generate most of Zambia's hydroelectricity. He said Zambia would continue importing power from Mozambique to cushion the energy deficit in the country and the country's economy. Mapani also advised consumers to use alternative sources of energy. Zambia's president, Hakainde Hichilema, has declared the drought a national emergency and urged local and international partners to help in fighting its effects. Elsewhere, the Democratic Republic of Congo has refuted claims that the country has entered into a military cooperation agreement with Russia. The denial by the Ministry of Communication and Media comes in response to an article published by the Russian state-owned news agency TASS. It reported that Russia's government had approved a draft military cooperation agreement with DR Congo. TASS cited a government document stating that the agreement included joint drills, military training, and visits by warships, including warplanes. However, the Congolese government clarified that while a draft agreement was initiated in 1999, it has not been signed to date. The Ministry of Communication and Media emphasized that there are currently no bilateral discussions between the two parties for the implementation of the draft agreements. And now in East Africa, authorities in Uganda have reportedly banned the sale of meat in the capital, Kampala, as part of restrictions to curb an outbreak of the foot and mouth disease, which affects animals. The Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries said the movement of cattle, goats, sheep, pigs and other products and byproducts from, to, through and within Kampala Capital City Authority, Kampala District, is prohibited indefinitely. A city official said they will work with other agencies to enforce the quarantine measures, but local media say butcheries in the city are still operational. Highly infectious foot and mouth disease causes fever and painful blisters inside the mouth and under the hooves and can be fatal for young animals. From other continents, we tell you that President Joe Biden has delivered a fiery State of the Union address, taking direct aim at his election rival, Donald Trump. Biden didn't hold back in his critique of Trump, labeling him as dangerous and launching into a blistering attack from the very start of his speech. Biden accused Trump of bowing down to Russian President Vladimir Putin and criticized him on a range of issues, including abortion and the economy. He warned that freedom and democracy are under threat both at home and abroad, drawing a historical parallel to President Lincoln and the Civil War. Earlier, News Central's international correspondent, Arthur Hagen, spoke to us more on this development from London. We apologize, we won't be able to bring you that, but then we tell you that European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen has expressed hope that a humanitarian aid corridor for Cyprus to Gaza will open this weekend amid fears of famine in the war-torn Palestinian territory. Her announcement came after U.S. President Joe Biden, in a State of the Union address, said the U.S. military would establish a temporary port off Gaza's coast to bring in aid. Von der Leyen described the situation in Gaza as dire and a humanitarian catastrophe. The European Commission issued a joint statement with Cyprus, the United Arab Emirates, United States, and United Kingdom, endorsing the activation of the maritime aid corridor to Gaza.
We are now very close to the opening of the corridor, hopefully this Sunday. And I'm very glad to see that an initial pilot operation will be launched today. The humanitarian situation in Gaza is dire, with innocent Palestinian families and children desperate for basic needs. And today we are facing a humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. And we stand by the innocent civilians in Palestine. And that is why today the Republic of Cyprus, the European Commission, the United Arab Emirates, and the United States, of course supported by other critical partners, announced our intent to open the maritime corridor to deliver much needed additional amounts of humanitarian assistance by sea.
Now, Russia's President Vladimir Putin and Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu have hailed women soldiers fighting in Ukraine and those supporting the country's armed forces. Both men praised the women in separate video messages celebrating International Women's Day.
Хочу отдельно обратиться и к женщинам, которые находятся в зоне специальной военной операции, выполняют боевые задачи, и к тем, которые сейчас в разлуке со своими родными, ждут наших героев, вдохновляют их любовью, радостью и поддержкой, переживают за всех наших бойцов, помогают им на передовой, в госпиталях, в многочисленных волонтерских структурах. Самое главное для любой женщины, какую бы профессию она ни выбрала, каких бы высот здесь не достигала, это семья, родные, близкие, неустанная забота о детях, об их здоровье, образовании, стремление так их воспитать, чтобы они выросли достойными, успешными людьми.
Сегодня в вооруженных силах проходит службу и работают более 300 тысяч женщин, которые профессионально выполняют поставленные перед ними задачи. Многие достойные и самоотверженно трудятся в военных госпиталях, вносят весомый вклад в обеспечение вооруженных сил и укрепление обороноспособности нашей страны. Безгранично благодарны вам за героизм и самоотверженность.
Away from that, relatives of passengers lost on Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 gathered in Beijing on Friday, still seeking answers and holding out hope a decade after the plane mysteriously vanished. The Boeing 777 aircraft disappeared from radar screens carrying 239 people on March 8, 2014, while en route from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. Despite the largest search in aviation history, the plane has never been found. And on Friday, family members in China's capital city appealed to Beijing to continue the search that was called off over 7 years ago. In business, in the first 2 months of 2024, the Nigerian exchange emerged as the top-performing exchange in Africa, delivering an impressive 33.70% return on investments, surpassing other well-known African exchanges. Despite challenges, the NGX displayed resilience, with its market capitalization growing by 13.79 trillion naira between January and February. Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO of Ajao Dynamics Investments, discussed the NGX's outperformance on the Business Edge show.
The market has a life of its own. It starts with that life, then maybe sometime it needs the economy to continue living, breathing more of those lives. So what happened was that some of the policies that were implemented by President Tinubu were very favorable to the market, especially equity listed in the market. With the removal of fuel subsidy, was working for those in the petroleum sector and the oil and gas sector that are listed in the market. And when you look at the revaluation of the floating of the naira, it has a very positive impact on the financial sector, even though it has a negative impact on the conglomerate and the manufacturing sector. So those two policies have driven the market to where it is today. And if you look at the sectorial performance, you realize that the banking space and the petroleum and the petroleum sector were the best performing because of these two major policies. And so that is why the exchange has performed very well, because those policies were actually very positive to the market.
In 2023, Nigeria's consumer goods sector encountered challenges due to the devaluation of the naira, impacting several companies. Dangote Sugar emphasized positive returns from its Numan operations and outlined plans for accelerated backward integration to enhance efficiency. Vincent Oshoma, head capital markets at Interstate Securities Limited, discussed how these strategies offset foreign exchange losses and declining volume on the Business Edge show.
Backward integration is key, because if you look at previous years, that's one of the things that have helped the company to grow its performance. And also when you look at some of the competitors, you look at Boa Foods, one of the things that has also helped Boa Foods is this level of exposure to Forex. I think as they continue to engage in backward integration, it will reduce the exposure to Forex. And that, I think, is key in helping the company come out of these challenging times, which we all know that it's not their making. They have to do business, and also the Forex issues. So I think backward integration is key as they are able to source for their raw materials, more of their raw materials locally. It will lead to their less dependence on imported raw materials, which will also reduce their exposure to Forex.
Still talking business, President Bola Tinubu has issued 3 executive orders to reform Nigeria's oil and gas sector, aiming to incentivize projects, reduce contracting costs and timelines, and enhance cost efficiency in local content requirements. These directives include fiscal incentives for non-associated gas, midstream and deepwater development, along with streamlining the contracting process to a 6-month cycle. Bolade Agbola, oil and gas analyst at Chapel Hill Denham Securities, discussed the potential impact of these new fiscal incentives on non-associated gas projects on the Business Edge show.
Top 10 countries with the largest gas reserves in the world, and I believe this is a positive one, given that the gas reserves are relatively untapped. And according to PwC's estimates, it's the non-associated gas is supposed to, be like the gross value that will be added is around $18 billion annually. So I believe that this fiscal incentive would have a positive effect in that segment of the oil and gas industry, in attracting investments to that space.
Let's talk sports now. The Nigerian Football Federation is requesting qualified candidates to submit interest for the coaching position of the Super Eagles. Following the expiration of Jose Pesiero's contract at the end of February, the NFF is in search of a new tactician for the team. Despite guiding the team to a second-place finish at the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations, the federation failed to agree to new terms with the Portuguese. Peseiro announced that he left his role as the team's head coach, saying it had been a great pleasure. With the 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifiers returning in June, Nigeria are in search of a new manager. The NFF listed 4 requirements in a public vacancy advertisement. The Federation is seeking candidates with the following: relevant coaching qualifications, proven experience at the elite level of football management, a successful track record in leading teams, and a knowledge of African football. We also tell you that Falcons coach Chris Danjuma aims for a strong start against Morocco in the African Games in 2023. The defending champions will face off against Morocco at Cape Coast Stadium today in Group B. The coach says the team is confident and determined to maintain their title, having already secured a spot in the 2024 FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup. Chris Danjuma is focused on preparing his team for success and is eager to secure a victory in their opening match of the tournament. Now, the 13th African Games is set to kick off with an official opening ceremony that will showcase the unique cultural heritage, sporting talent of the African continent and its diversity. The ceremony at the University of Ghana Sports Stadium will bring together the heads of state, high-level dignitaries, athletes, officials and spectators from across the continent to mark the commencement of these awaited special events. The theme of the 13th African Games is Experience the African Dream. The opening ceremony of the African Games will be graced by His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, Mustafa K. Mahamat, the Chairperson of African Union Commission, and Ambassador Minata Samate Sesuma, Commissioner for Health, Humanitarian Affairs and Social Development at the African Union Commission, among others. And that's all at this hour, but before we go, we quickly take a look at some of our major stories. We told you that Kaduna governor promises to rescue all 280 abducted pupils. African Union, United States welcome new date for delayed Senegal presidential election. And finally, we told you that South African Jewish women denounce government silence over abuse of Israeli hostages. Don't forget to send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number and email on your screen. You can follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can also watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekon Onobanjo.